Change your side. Hello, my friend. These dates? Thank you.
La nostra azione contro il cambiamento climatico si ispira al suo pensiero di amante della natura, dell'umanità.
Shettima.
Questo corpo elettrico, thank you so much.
Neste momento, chamamos para a manifestação o presidente da França, Emmanuel Macron.
Mesdames, Messieurs les chefs d'État et de gouvernement, Mesdames, Messieurs les ministres, Mesdames et Messieurs les ambassadrices et ambassadeurs, Mesdames et Messieurs, je tiens avant toute chose à remercier le Brésil qui nous accueille ici à Belem, au cœur de l'Amazonie, dans cette
e os chefes de delegações presentes. Quero cumprimentar o presidente do Senado brasileiro, companheiro Davi Alcolumbre. Quero cumprimentar o presidente da Câmara dos Deputados do Brasil, deputado Hugo Mota. Quero cumprimentar o Luiz Edson Fachin, presidente do Supremo Tribunal Federal Brasileiro. Quero cumprimentar o meu ministro das Relações Exteriores, Mauro Vieira, e a companheira Marina Silva, ministra do Meio Ambiente e Mudança do Clima, por meio de quem cumprimento os ministros e as ministras de Estado que me acompanharam. Quero cumprimentar o embaixador André Corrêa do Lago, presidente da COP30. Quero cumprimentar o presidente da COP29, Mukhtar Babayev. E quero cumprimentar o parceiro nessa jornada, o amigo Helder Barbalho, o governador.
Excelências, Excellencies, agradeço ao Presidente Lula da Silva, ao Presidente da COP e ao Governo e ao povo do Brasil pela calorosa hospitalidade em Belém. Muito obrigado pela vossa liderança e firme compromisso com o multilateralismo no momento em que o nosso mundo está em jogo. Presidente Lula, gap to 1.5 degrees. Nature's carbon sinks. Short. The hard truth is that we have failed to ensure we reach
Presidente,
between the 1.5 limit, starting at the latest in the early 2030s, is inevitable. We need a paradigm shift to limit this overshoot's magnitude and duration and quickly drive it down. Even a temporary average overshoot will have dramatic consequences. It could push ecosystems past irreversible tipping points, expose billions to unlivable conditions, and amplify threats to peace and security. Every fraction of a degree means more hunger, displacement, and loss, especially for those least responsible. This is moral failure and deadly negligence. Yes, the newly submitted nationally determined contributions represent progress, but they still fall short of what is needed. Even if fully implemented, they would put us on a pathway well above 2 degrees of global warming. Meanwhile, the climate crisis is accelerating. Record-breaking wildfires, deadly floods, superstorms, shattering lives, economies, and decades of progress. Last year, emissions reached another record high. And today, as we have seen, the World Meteorological Organization confirmed that the emissions continue to rise this year. Let us be clear, the 1.5 degrees limit is a red line for humanity. It must be kept within reach. And scientists also tell us that this is still possible. If we act now at speed and scale, we can make the overshoot as small, as short, and as safe as possible, and bring temperatures back below 1.5 degrees Celsius before century's end. Small, by peaking global emissions immediately, cutting them deeply this decade, accelerating the phase-out of fossil fuels, slashing methane, and safeguarding forests and oceans, nature's carbon sinks. Short, by reaching global net zero by 2050 and moving swiftly to sustain net negative emissions afterwards. And safe, by drastically increasing investments in adaptation and resilience and delivering early warnings for all by 2027. Excellencies, the United Nations will not give up on the 1.5 degrees goal. Because another truth is evident. We have never been better equipped to fight back. A clean energy revolution has taken hold. Solar and wind are now the cheapest sources of power and the fastest growing sources of electricity in history. Last year, almost all new power capacity came from renewables. The clean energy economy is creating jobs and driving development. It is reshaping geopolitics, delivering energy security and price stability. And it is connecting millions to clean and affordable energy for the first time. The economics have shifted. In 2024, investors poured $2 trillion into clean energy, 800 billion more than fossil fuels. Clean energy is winning in price, performance, and potential, offering the solutions to transform our economies and protect our populations. What is still missing is political courage. Fossil fuels still command vast subsidies, taxpayers' money. Too many corporations are making record profits from climate devastation, with billions spent on lobbying, deceiving the public, and obstructing progress. And too many leaders remain captive to these entrenched interests. Too many countries are starved of the resources to adapt and locked out of the clean energy transition. And too many people are losing hope that their leaders will act. We need to move faster and move together. And this COP must ignite a decade of acceleration and delivery. First, countries must agree on a bold and credible response plan to close the NDC ambition gap to 1.5 degrees. Common but differentiated responsibilities must apply, but that should not be an excuse for any country not to assume its fair share. This means supercharging renewables, electrification, and energy efficiency, building modern grids and large-scale storage, halting and reversing deforestation by 2030, cutting methane emissions, and setting near-term 1.5-aligned coal phase-out schedules. I've consistently advocated against more coal plants or fossil fuel exploration and expansion. At COP28 in Dubai, countries committed to transition away from fossil fuels. No more greenwashing, no loopholes. We must turn that committing into action while supporting low and middle income developing countries that are highly dependent on fossil fuels. And we must also dismantle structural barriers and provide the conditions for developing countries to deliver and exceed their NDC commitments. Trade and investment policies must support climate ambition, not undermine it. Second, we must demonstrate a clear and credible path to reaching the $1.3 trillion a year in climate finance for developing countries by 2035, as agreed at COP29 in Baku. Developed countries must take the lead in mobilizing $300 billion annually, delivering affordable, predictable finance at the agreed scale. And all providers must show they will contribute to meeting the $300 billion and $1.3 trillion milestones. It's no longer time for negotiations. It's time for implementation, implementation, implementation. With independent tracking, faster disbursement, and terms that reflect climate vulnerability, including debt relief. And third, developing countries must leave Belem equipped with a climate justice package that delivers equity, dignity, and opportunity. That means the concrete plan to close the adaptation finance gap, ensuring that developed countries honor their pledge to provide $40 billion adaptation finance by the end of this year, and giving confidence that affordable adaptation finance will be scaled up beyond 2025 and delivered swiftly to the communities on the front lines. It also means placing justice at the heart of the transition, with concrete measures to support developing countries to navigate it, protecting workers, empowering communities, and creating new opportunities, and significant contributions and simplified access to the Loss and Damage Fund. A just transition also means indigenous peoples leading the way. Their knowledge and full participation light the path to a livable planet. Excellencies, you can count on the United Nations. Through our climate promise, over 100 developing countries received support in the preparation of the new nationally determined contributions. I've directed the United Nations Development Programme to build on this architecture and work across the system to support developing countries during the implementation plan. The challenge is immense, but the choices are clear. No one can bargain with physics, but we can choose to lead or be led to ruin. Choose to make Belem the turning point, stand with science, stand for justice, stand for future generations, and I thank you.
Agradecemos a mensagem.
It reminds us of the essence of what the world seeks to preserve, the splendor of nature and the delicate balance of life that sustains us all. Nigeria, therefore, stands with the global community in the collective resolve to heal, to restore, and to sustain this place we call home. We are here because the earth speaks to us. It speaks not in words, but through the devastations we witness every day, through the floods that wash away entire communities, through the droughts that parch our farmlands, through the hurricanes that batter coastal towns, through the wildfires that consume ancient forests, through the heat waves that choke our cities, and through the conflicts that happen because of all of this. The art speaks in the language of loss and warning. It tells us that our survival is tied to its well-being. These are the cries that have compelled us to gather from one city to another in pursuit of one shared purpose: to save the only home we have. So I bring to you today not only the goodwill of His Excellency, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, but the assurance of Nigeria's unflinching commitment to climate action. We thank the government and people of the Federative Republic of Brazil for their exceptional hospitality. A few days ago, Nigeria took a bold step forward. We approved two landmark instruments: the National Carbon Market Framework and the Climate Change Fund. These are the pillars of our climate finance architecture. They are designed to build a transparent and high-integrity carbon market aligned with Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. Through them, we can generate, trade, and retire carbon credits with credibility and fairness. We can mobilize billions of dollars in climate investments to finance adaptation, resilience, and green industrialization. The proceeds will flow into the Climate Change Fund to support communities most affected by climate impacts. To guide this journey, we have launched a 5-year carbon market roadmap. This will establish an emissions trading system and a carbon tax regime strengthened by fiscal incentives that reward clean innovation. Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Nigeria's third nationally determined contribution, validated and submitted in September 2025, marks an ambitious step in our climate journey. It commits us to an absolute emission reduction of 32% by 2035 and chart our way to net zero in the long run, supported by strategies across energy, agriculture, transport, waste, and industry. Our decade of gas strategy anchors this transition, using natural gas to stabilize power and drive industrial growth, while expanding solar and off-grid solutions for rural electrification. Through these efforts, we are powering small businesses, promoting clean energy, and transforming agricultural waste into opportunity. Nigeria's geography, from the Sahelian plains in the north to the mangroves of the Niger Delta, reflect nature's generosity and reminds us of our responsibility to preserve what sustains us. This is why we are investing in climate-smart agriculture, livestock transformation, and sustainable land use practices that reduce conflict over resources and enhance food security. Yet, no nation can finance climate ambition with goodwill alone. Climate finance remains the vehicle of effective implementation, and we therefore call for a reliable and equitable architecture that recognizes the unique realities of developing nations and empowers them to deliver on global commitments. Nigeria welcomes the operationalization of the Loss and Damage Fund and urges our partners to ensure its accessibility to the most climate-vulnerable nations. Nigeria asserts that Africa's voice must not echo as a cry of vulnerability, but a chorus of innovation. Our continent is rich in renewable resources, biodiversity, and useful ingenuity. I hereby say with absolute certainty that we are not the problem. We are an integral part of the solution. This is why at COP30, We hope to demonstrate that Africa can lead in carbon capture through forests, in renewable energy expansion, in digital monitoring of emissions, and in regional cooperation that translates ambition into prosperity. Excellencies, let COP30 be remembered as the moment when the world moved from pledges to performance, from ambition to action, and from dialogue to delivery. For Nigeria stands ready to work with all nations to build a fairer, greener, and more resilient world, one where our children will inherit not the ruins of our indifference, but the fruits of our collective resolve. Thank you so much.
Neste momento, chamamos para a manifestação